Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Lionel, class of 2009, back with another episode of PV versus everybody. And as you see, got my co-host, Mr. Mickens, in the building. Also, Coach Heist Northern in the building. And we're gonna talk about week 11, all right? We got to get through some of these games. Talk about, man, what went down on the hill. They call it the real hill. You know what I'm saying? It looked like only one team made it to the top. You know what I mean? And so we're gonna talk a little bit about that too as well. But first and foremost, man, we got to do. I got to show some love. The PV alumni, Jeff McKissick. He's a Texas licensed loan officer with Fairway Independence Mortgage Company, and he'll guide you seamlessly through the home buying process. See, many of us are unaware of our credit score, our true financial situation, but Jeff will help you develop a step-by-step plan to make your dream of owning a home achievable sooner than you think. So don't let the fear of achieving new heights hold you back. Perfect for getting a house for your growing family, and so you can watch those host those PV watch parties, man. So get started now on taking the next big step in your life. Don't delay. Talk with Jeff today so you can be in your home tomorrow. And listen, when you get that loan in place, you already know, man. Hit me up. You already know we're gonna find you the perfect place for you, because that's just as sure as God has a mansion prepared for you in heaven, is just as sure as I know there's a special place He has prepared for you on this earth. And so I'm just partnering with Him to help prepare a place for you. And so after we find that place, man, we want to make sure that it's livable, it's ready for you to move in, safe for your family. And so we got to do, man. When you're thinking big about your biggest investment and want a thorough assessment of it, man, you got to hit up Big, that Blueprint Improvement Group, who owned by PV alumni Neil Harris. He has experienced inspectors who use advanced tools and techniques to assess every aspect of your property from the roof to the foundation. So don't delay, man. Go ahead and get that inspection in place. Support the team that supports the team. All right, support the team that supports the team. And so, we got Coach. Hey,
yes, sir.
We finally had a breakout session this week, but we ain't gonna talk about it just yet. But man, how was your week? How was PV's number one fan? Adam Northern. How did he feel about what went down in Huntsville? That's what I need to know.
Hey, man, it was an adventurous week. I may have mentioned last week I was going visit my brother in Buffalo and driving a vehicle back down. So I flew on Wednesday. I get there, it's 40 degrees with 40-mile-per-hour wind and sideways rain in the Buffalo area. So I drove back over the next 2 days and made it home Friday nightish. And hey, man, that joker happy being at Prairie. And I want to say thank you to everybody that's making it a joy for him to be on campus. Just being around, we talked about him going to volleyball games, going to the football games with his buddies and hanging out with those guys, and they looking forward to wherever they play at in a championship game, being there, because he always thought he was very young when we won the championship, but he remembers it being cold and rainy, and hopefully this year it won't be cold and rainy when the Panthers get there. But I tell you what, he's definitely enjoying himself. And look, the noise stopped, don't talk in the northern household between my sister, me, and my wife, and Adam, all being alums, not Adam alum, but going to different schools. So it's good.
Nah, that's what's up, man. Mr. Mickens, how was your weekend? How was your assessment of everything that went on? What's your thoughts?
Oh, everything that went on was interesting. Can't wait to talk about it. It's going to be really something. So, yeah, excited about that, and just going to see what happens. And I plan to ride down to the yard this weekend and see what I can do. So you hear that, Houston people coming all the way from Dallas to come down there. You guys can drive 35 minutes.
No, that's for sure, man. And listen, weekend was great for me. I had a great time. We've been having this a Rise event at my church. Me and my wife been volunteering at in the four. It's been awesome. Just the presentations, the information has been so good. So I've been locked in there. But I was able to. I didn't catch the game live, but I was able to catch the replay and to listen. I was waiting on the breakout. You know what I mean? And I like how Mr. 12 fan put it, right? Cam MV Peters. Okay, that's what it looked like, man. And we're gonna really get into it because he went crazy, I say it always remind me about that Bethune game. And we talked about Bethune after they came out of the game with South Carolina State that day. We said, man, has Bethune kind of finally figured some things out, right? And I think we saw the next couple of weeks that especially on the offensive end, they had figured some things out. And I kind of felt the same way with these last couple of weeks with this offense. Even last week, even with the 4 interceptions, I said, man, he still has some ball placements and made some throws in that game. That was like, that's some good throws, right? You know what I'm saying? Even with those mistakes. And so you saw a continuation of some of them good throws, right? And he just took care of the ball, right? You know what I mean? And that first one that really got going to Andre Dennis, man, just dropped right in the pocket. But look, we ain't talking about that yet. I'm getting ahead of myself. You know what I'm saying? I got 48 reasons to get ahead of myself, but we're not gonna get too far ahead, right? So first and foremost, guys, man, you know how we do. Biggest winner, biggest loser from this weekend.
Good.
I think biggest winner. Well, my first biggest winner, I'd be remiss not to say it, but that guy right there in the orange had an engagement party this weekend. Just got engaged, so that was biggest winner. And the other one, that one, well, the smaller one, had his 21st birthday party, even though his birthday's in October. But he just came home this weekend and we celebrated. So just wanted to see that. But biggest winner, I would say Prairie View because everybody wanted them to lose. Everyone's praying that they lose. And now they only need one of the last two to secure the SWAC West. And biggest loser, kind of a tie between BCU and Grambling for the fight and Texas Southern for knocking themselves out of contention when all they had to do was hold serve and they were at home. So I was just surprised at that. So I would put them as biggest loser for this week.
I'm gonna go my biggest winner. I'm gonna go Grambling, and my biggest loser, I'm gonna say Texas Southern and the Southern Jaguars, just for not being able to get off the losing skid. And I think a lot of people thought that they were, because of Coach McNair going back home, be able to pull that game out. But they, it's still a lot going on down there. So I would say Grambling and Southern and Texas Southern, because Texas Southern didn't stay in the hunt as they thought they would.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Texas Southern at the end of the day, because they're now out of contention. You gotta put the biggest loser there. But also, I would say Bethune-Cookman.
Yes.
Bethune-Cookman have been in a position where if they continue to win, they would set themselves up to say, man, essentially almost like a one-game playoff. Now they still would need Alabama State to drop a game, but they had an opportunity, a long shot opportunity, right? To get into a SWAC championship game. And I think, again, overall, when you look at what Bethune-Cookman is doing this year, you still have to feel good in year 3 to say, hey, this is where we are in year 3 of this program, and you feel like now you're building something, you got some momentum going. Because listen, there have been some good Bethune-Cookman teams over the years, right? Back, especially in the MEAC. And so the SWAC hasn't seen a good Bethune-Cookman team program as of yet, but they have had some talent to get down there in that Florida area and really get going, especially on the offensive side of things, man. So they still got to. I think you still got to feel good about where you are overall, but you would have loved to got the win, and you love not to have the fight, obviously, And so, Coach, I don't know if you saw or heard the comments from Coach Mickey Joseph. But what was your thoughts in general overall? Just one about the response to everything that was going on, because he really made the statement about, we will respond with disrespect, right? And I think that is something that kind of for some people, right, is kind of like, well, that's a part of the lessons we're supposed to be teaching, right? Is like how to respond with disrespect, how to address it in a proper way and manner, right? Like you don't let disrespect go unaddressed, right?
Yes.
And I think Coach Jackson has made a statement like that earlier in the year too, right? All disrespect will be addressed, right? But I don't have to disrespect you back to necessarily address the disrespect that is going on. So just what was your thoughts on that in general? Then he made a point about kind of and I know you've been at Graham before, right? And you understand kind of the makeup and the setup of that. So maybe you can speak to that too as well for people who are not familiar with Graham and setup and maybe how the teams come in and out, so that way they can understand the frustration that Coach Joseph was probably having there too with getting the team out and getting them warmed up for the second half. But go ahead.
Well, I'm laughing because I'm reading some of the comments on the side, and I'm thinking back to a lot of the fights happen when you have teams that have one way in, one way out of the stadium situation. That's one thing. Now, I was on the staff at Grambling when Doug Williams, who was my boss, and Darryl Asbury, who was my high school teammate, got into it almost about the same thing, coming down the hill, and we had a tiger head at the bottom of the hill. And
don't scratch.
Doug told Asbury, hey man, don't walk through that. You hadn't earned that right. Asbury, being the guy that he is, walks through it. And the next thing you know, my two homeboys swinging at each other over there. So it is, I've seen worse, less. I understand Coach Joseph's frustration. Now, did he say things that he might regret saying? I think so, but I don't think people really understand what goes into some of those fights. And I would say the disrespect. Now, we had rules for fighting. You punch guys, you punch them in the stomach. Once somebody helmet come off, it's sort of, you don't punch a guy in the head type of thing. But that was an all-out brawl. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be some fines levied. Suspensions have already been given. But I just think that's some of the words, and then some of the comments that I've seen when I was sent the video about what people are saying online. It's a lot of people that never been in that arena, because you can talk about what are we teaching and all this other kind of stuff, but until somebody disrespects you, it's easy to say you let that slide, or what are we teaching, when you hadn't been disrespected. And I always talk about this, and maybe I'm getting a little bit off, but I had to tell somebody, let me walk my wife and my son away from me, and you can come meet me at my office and see if you had that same energy. Now, was that the right thing to say? No, but I always tell people, you are a coach, a man before you're a coach sometimes. And I don't think people that have never been in the arena understand the emotion that goes into a football team brawl, melee, whether it's football, baseball, basketball. I look at athletics as a little bit different when it comes to the fighting part of it. And I guess that's just because of the way I was raised, who I played for, the camaraderie that comes with it is almost the one fight, we all fight, and then we'll deal with the consequences later.
Now, that was something interesting I thought too, was I felt like, you talked about if we one fight, we all fight. I felt like, man, it seemed at some points that, man, Graham was like ganging up on some of these Bethune guys. And I'm like, man, even if you don't want to get suspended at some point, don't you got to go to the aid of your teammate though, and like at least try to break up the fight? If not, if you're not joining in. I mean, that was one thing I saw that I thought was very interesting.
But I know teams that if the fight is on video, they gonna look and see who is not fighting and who is not breaking up the fight. You got one or two choices. You should be pulling your teammates back, or you should be involved in trying to inflict pain on somebody. That's the way I look at it. But I just think, sometimes you have to think a little bit out of the box. But that's one of the craziest places you ever want to be, especially as a coach. Now, mind you, I was on the staff when Grambling and Prairie View had the big fight the year before I came to Prairie View. So I've seen it all kind of ways, but I just think that you have one or two choices: break it up or get involved in I'm helping my teammate out in a different type of situation.
I got you, Mr. Mickens. What's your thoughts on everything with the Graham and Bethune brawl? I don't know if you saw it or what was your initial thoughts?
I saw the end result. I didn't see what started it. It was my understanding there was some talking back and forth, some trash talking, and like Coach Northern said, a lot of times you see that stuff when they both have to funnel in or funnel out of the same tunnel. And that's why at the State Fair Classic, I don't recall us ever having a fight there, but they always make the teams go one at a time. Because sometimes it can be fine because some of these guys are teammates with the other people. But sometimes it's not fine because it's a lot of emotion going on. And maybe that guy took a cheap shot at you during the game, and now's a chance to, kick him in the back or something while you're walking out. And then sometimes, unfortunately, wearing helmets, you can't see what somebody else is saying because it was one of our games. I think the Alabama State game. There was a lot of trash talking that the refs didn't address. And I was surprised our team had the discipline to not get a fight. The personal foul against 66 during the game of Prairie View, I thought, you didn't enforce that. I saw two of our players get punched in the head, and I guess the refs either pretended not to see it or didn't see it. And that's the kind of stuff I've seen start fights is when the refs don't address it, evenly. And then that's when, you're young, you're 18 to 23, you're going to feel like you need to get your get back since the people in charge aren't enforcing the same thing both directions. And that's kind of how I looked at it. And I heard the AD or the coach or somebody punched somebody. I don't know if that really happened, but I didn't see it in the video. But if that did, that could also present a problem if one of the adults punched one of the student athletes or something.
Look, I'm going to say it depends on the situation, because if he's coming to the defense of a student athlete, I totally understand. But if he's just trying to get a lick in or just say he punched somebody, that's a totally different ball game. Because I know a coach that punched somebody that was stumping on a football player at Prairie View, allegedly. But if he's coming to the defense of a student athlete, cheerleader, equipment manager, I totally understand the athletic director, coach getting involved.
Yeah, and I mean, there's been some things that people said, the AD also was involved, et cetera. So haven't seen video evidence of these different things, right? Mr. Graves is saying AD did punch a coach. He was coming to defensive player. BCU players sworn at Mickey too. So, the thing is, we don't have, some of this is still he say, she say right now, because we don't necessarily have specific evidence. The one video I saw, the coach, they showed the coach kind of like bumped with a Grambling player, right? But it looked again like the Grambling players and BCU players was arguing, and it was almost like he was stepping in to kind of tell him like keep going or something like that, right? And then they show the player swinging at him later on. One of the players swinging at him later on, but you don't see him punching the player, right, or anything like that in the video that I saw, right? But again, doesn't mean that it did or didn't happen, because we don't have everything. We only have those couple moments. But moving forward, man, game wise in general, what do you guys, we touched more about the fight than the game, right? Bethune-Cookman tried to put up a little fight, but Grambling got the win. It always hurts a little bit more when you lose the game, right? You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, when there's a fight going on. What are y'all thoughts on that, man? A freshman quarterback for Grambling came and had a great game on yesterday. Coach Mickey Joseph talked about how he had about 60% of the playbook that he understood. But listen, that was 60% was good enough, because he obviously got the job done. But what was y'all thoughts on just Graham and how they was able to pull out that victory and keep their hopes of winning the SWAC West there, right? Obviously, we know it's not going to happen, but they keep that hope there, right? So, what was you guys' thoughts on the game in general?
Well, I think it was it showed their character, outside of the fighting. And maybe I didn't pick the best shirt for tonight, but I promise it had nothing to do with the fight. It was about our game. But yeah, they I think it was really good that for them that they showed a sense of urgency to hang in there. And like you said, they're not going to catch us, but it's just in case we stumble, because you got to be ready in case we stumble and they could get another crack. You just never know. So I thought that was big, the way that they stepped up, because BCU had really been rolling off the points. They don't have the best defense in the SWAC, but they always were able to outrun their opponents and still come out on top. So, I think that's probably their best season they've had since coming to the SWAC. They were good in the past, but since coming to the SWAC, they hadn't had a season like this where they actually were in contention. So I think it was good because, they weren't going to just lay down and give it to Grambling. So I think that was good how they really dug in and made some things happen.
Well, I think one of the things they did, they made it easy for them. Number one, Grambling's defense, Coach Rollins had those boys ready to play, got a few turnovers early in the ball game. The other thing is they were able to run the ball. I mean, they closed out the game with nothing but handoffs, and he probably should have had maybe 2 more touchdown passes. I think they missed one pass interference on a deep ball on a seam route. Then they had one, I think the guy just misjudged it. So he played a good game, but his best friend was they running attack. And they got rolling pretty good on the ground game. So the best thing for a freshman quarterback is to be able to say, here, go get 5 to 7 yards, and then those 5 to 7 start turning to 10 and 12 late in the ball game.
Right. And the defense keep giving you chances on offense by, not just staying on the field so long and giving up a bunch of first downs. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving on, when you look at the Texas Southern Alabama State game, Texas Southern at halftime was up 24-21. And I think that was kind of a shocker for most people when they were looking at that game. When you look at it overall, right, Texas Southern, no turnovers in this game, right? 0 turnovers. They outgained Alabama State. I think they kept Alabama State to under 200 yards of total offense, or right around 200 yards of total offense, and ends up losing this game, right? Had a lot of short fields that they gave Alabama State. Their punt return coverage and kickoff coverage was horrible in this game, allowing them to really get some, great starting field position. And then in the second half, I think they may have had 2 or 3 drives that ended in Alabama State territory, and they ended with no points, right? And so you're really talking about a game that Texas Southern legitly had a chance to win, but were not able to pull out. What was your thoughts on this game? Also, for Alabama State, man, it's kind of like, listen, man, his body ready to go, because the way this game turned out, and with kind of how their defense has allowed teams to kind of be able to move up and down the field on them, you can kind of see that this team could be in a little trouble if their offense isn't able to get rolling, and especially if you can just key in on the run game and slow that down, right? But what are your thoughts on this game overall? Again, Alabama State doing what championship level teams do, which is find ways to win at the end of the day. But what was your thoughts?
Yeah, they really it was a weird game because, like you always say, which people joke me about being a box score podcaster, but sometimes if you didn't see the game, you got to kind of get the feel of it by looking. Yeah. But we joked the box score podcasters, and this is the very reason. Momentum and field position was the difference in this game. And, Texas Southern on paper really beat them up. And Host Claw, who really has been torching teams, they held them to 44 yards. So you would have thought without Andrew Body and Host Claw couldn't get his rushing going that they lose this game. But when you don't have to go far, it's kind of like how they beat Prairie View. Some of those drives, they didn't have to go far because we had so many turnovers. So in this game, the special teams let Texas Southern down, which is surprising because they They play pretty decent
Mhm.
special teams in their other games, but this one it just kind of let them down.
Well, like you say, you talk about the box score podcast. The thing is, Alabama State special teams scored 2 touchdowns. And for the most part, if you score 1 touchdown on special teams, your chance of winning goes up 80%. 2 of them, it probably goes to 99%. Texas Southern, I want to say, had twice as many first downs, and they had twice as much time of possession. And that's how, the stats can be deceiving when you look at yards, first down, time of possession. All of that stuff don't mean anything unless you score in the football. So that's a perfect example of how the box score can make a fool of you if you don't know what you're looking at or you don't know the game of football. So it's just a team game, and you're going to have some games like that where your defense might be struggling and your special teams put 2 or 3 in the box. So you get 2 returns and 2 field goals. That's 20 points right there, along with what your offense might give you. You might say, give us 14 offense, and we'll get the rest special teams and defense-wise. So that's a perfect example of that right there.
Yes.
No, that again, that makes sense, and obviously for Texas Southern, because of that loss, they're essentially out of contention for the SWAC West. What, Coach, when you look at that program, what is your thought process? Chris Dishman year 2, and kind of where they are right now. Obviously, their goals was to win the SWAC West, right? BPV win the SWAC West. He say didn't accomplish either of those, but just as an overall program in year 2. How do you look and assess where they are at this moment?
You like to think they trended in the right direction, but now everything is sped up so much. It's almost junior college football. If you're not winning by the second year, let's get this guy on out of here. Unless you see certain things happening within your program, maybe you have some new facilities coming online. Maybe you getting an uptick in your scholarships. If you're a program like Valley. You go from losing close games, big games, to losing close, winning close. Those types of things that make you think you're trending in the right direction. So I think they are in the process of resurrecting that program. But I tell you what, man, it's a different place down there, and you have some good things with the open enrollment. I saw they got a new weight room. I think this is the first season that they were in the new weight room full time. So they got some good things going down there, but it's just a matter of, number one, can you maintain the players that have been successful, especially the young guys? You think of how many guys they lost a year or 2 ago that left Texas Southern, and then they end up starting in the SEC somewhere. So they getting some good guys on campus. Can you keep them? And then if you lose one, especially if you lose one late, can you replace them with a quality product?
Yeah,
Coach. I think you said, you talk about them resurrecting the program. Things only resurrect that was alive already. That program been dead, okay, for a long time. All right, they trying to actually become alive for the first time. All right, but anyway, Mr. Mickens. Man, what's your thoughts on kind of Dishman and where they are so far year 2? I think, Coach, you make a good point. It kind of reminds me of, when you think back of some teams and kind of how they were building, but yet they could have been building, but it's like, man, you got Fobbs over there at Grambling though right now. Yes. You know what I'm saying? They could have been building, but like, oh man, Pete Richardson is at Southern right now, right? And it's like, that's what happens a lot of times is, your team is not bad, right? It's just, man, you're getting good when there's just somebody else that's right there that's already there, right? You know what I'm saying? And so when you look at what Coach Jackson is doing, we look at Coach T.C. Taylor and what he's done right over at Jackson. It's like, yeah, man, you could have guys that have things that they're building, but it could just be in a bad era, right? You know what I'm saying? And so it doesn't mean that the program wasn't good for what they have been, but it also could mean that when you look in the history of it and say, man, they didn't win anything in that time, it's like, yeah, because them guys ran off 3 out of 4. These other guys ran off 2 out of 3, right? And it's like, that's just how things go. But what's your thoughts, Mr. Mickens?
I think in normal times you would say he's building, and he tried to do it the old-fashioned way, bringing in some good freshmen. And he did bring in some good freshmen, but like Coach Northern said, how long can you get them to stick in this new portal era? It's really kind of hard to see how good a coach is because your team can flip so quick on you. And then now what do you do? And that's the kind of thing that kind of gets you. And all these people that are crying about getting rid of the divisions, well, you could kind of say the same thing. That's kind of what holds Texas Southern back. When they lose that first game to us, it's tough. And then when Prairie View loses that game to either Grambling or Southern or both, we're looking uphill at that point. And so the way the West is kind of made, one game can kick you out because Coach Northern, you remember the year we only lost one game and we still couldn't go to the SWAC championship.
I think that was the year we went 9-1 with Mark Spivey at quarterback, lost the Grambling game, and didn't get to the matter of fact, I think it was almost a three-way tie because I ended up having to go to the Bayou Classic to represent Prairie View. If Southern or Grambling, somebody would have lost, it would have been a three-way tie, but it didn't happen for us. But it's just sometimes it's gonna happen like that.
We should have went divisionless, Coach. We should have been divisionless.
Hey, they didn't cry about that when the West was like that. Nobody cried about that.
I was on the coaches committee, and it was some talk about we need to do this or that because at the time it was the Southern or Grambling going back and forth more than anybody. And then Jackson was going through the ups and downs a little bit. Alabama State would be decent. And, it was whoever came out the West 9 times out of 10 was going to win it, which happened to be Southern and Grambling. So a lot of people didn't like that fact back then, but it was brought up, but it didn't get much traction, just like it shouldn't get much traction now.
So why didn't it get much traction then? Because obviously you're hearing it come back up now. My biggest contention is obviously in a year like this, for example. Well, at the end of the day, Jackson doesn't play Prairie View, right, in the regular season. Yes. And a lot of times that happens in a lot of these leagues. The difference is there's so many teams that you get a chance to kind of get a big broad sweep. But here we're not, and with the kind of permanent crossover games, for example, well, there's going to be probably 2 times in 10 years that Jackson and Prairie View will play in the regular season, right? Mm-hmm. The rest of the time they're not going to play, us and FAM, right? Because FAM is always going to play Southern. So those kind of things are going to always be like that. So you're never going to, if Prairie View and Texas Southern, for example, are building and now going to be at the top of the West, well, you're going to have years upon years where those teams never play in the regular season. So how can you actually really judge, right, then from a head-to-head standpoint, you won't. It's still going to be opinionated at the end of the day. So what's the point of getting rid of the divisions?
So this what it all came about back then. It was a couple things that was going into place. Valley, Pine Bluff, and Prairie View were having a hard time scheduling non-conference games. They were also having a hard time scheduling money games because those 3 schools were consistently underfunded. So just say if Prairie View was to go play North Texas, that game may not count for North Texas to get bowl eligible because you had to give a certain amount of scholarships every year in order for that victory to count towards your bowl eligibility. So that was part of it. Then part of it was once Prairie View got to being decent, a lot of those teams in the East really didn't want to play us because nobody wanted to lose to Prairie View. So it was it was a couple things like that was going on in the background. Oh, the other thing was some schools were underbidding each other in the conference for non-conference games. So just I'm gonna use North Texas for example. North Texas may call Prairie View and say, "Hey, we'll give you guys $100,000 to come play us, and you bring your band turnaround trip." Pine Bluff may get wind of it and say, "Hey, we'll come play you guys for $90,000 instead of the $100,000." It's different things like that was going on within the conference. So it was some rules put in place to stop that. But that's when they first started talking about going divisionless. But that was some of the problems that's what made everybody start having to play everybody. It wasn't lazy ADs. It was people non-conference didn't want to play. And then if you're not a school that can just say pay a Langston or pay a Tarleton State or somebody, one of those D2 Texas schools to come to your place, then it was hard for you to schedule games. So that's what it really went back to. It wasn't about, in a lot of cases, the East versus West, but part of it was when we got good at Prairie View, a lot of those schools on the other side didn't want to, and nobody wanted to come to Prairie View and play in old Blackshear either. That was part of it.
No. That was a tough place.
Yeah,
Coach, they gonna take that like you revising history now, by saying that. You know what I
well, I'm
mean?
just telling the truth. They can take it how they want to.
Yeah.
And I was in the meetings. I bet you if I go look in my bags, I could find the notes from those meetings. If I go, I'll look in my backpack, my old bag, and see if I had a notes from those meetings. I keep stuff way longer than my wife say I should, but I bet I got the notes from those meetings somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah.
So these are conference meetings that was going on because of these issues between schools, having trouble. Is that also why they went to the 9-game conference schedule too? That one period of time?
That's part of it, but every SWAC sport has either head coaches or somebody from your school. I think I went when it was in Houston a couple times since Coach Frazier was on. He knew I was going to be a head coach eventually, and he was like, "Hey man, if you want to go to this meeting for me, this is in Houston, or hey, this may be here. Why don't you go to this?" And I would get on all kind of committees because it make your resume look good. And then you get a chance to meet a lot of ADs because they had an ADs meeting going on. You may have all the head football coaches, and the SIDs may have their meeting. So it wasn't just because of that. It's a customary meeting for all coaches. The SEC has theirs in Destin every year. So every conference has theirs. I just so happen to go to a lot of stuff for Coach Frazier, especially once our defense got real good. And I started getting interviews for head coaching jobs.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And then, I was gonna ask too, when you talk about I just lost it. I just lost it. It'll come back to me though. It'll come back to me. But yeah, because but I was just thinking of those scheduling issues, right? Because now we talk about the issues with scheduling, right? And so thinking of kind of the conference coming in, and I'm happy the conference stepped in, right, and started putting rules in place and things in place to deal with those things, because obviously it's important, right, that we all on the same footing, and you want everybody to be able to benefit, but you can't do that when you got schools that's supposed to essentially be, you want everybody to be doing something well, but you're undercutting each other, right?
Yeah.
And so it's almost shocking to hear, but it kind of is what it is, right? But let's move on, man, to the next game. Alcorn this past week getting 3 in a row, right? You know what I'm saying? So they were able to take care of Southern this week. And Southern still, hasn't been able to get a conference win. Mr. Mickens, you can start with us first, man. What was your thoughts on this game and on Alcorn securing another victory? Coach said Thomas, again, has to be feeling good. It's something about, building momentum toward the end of the year, because that can also help you going into the spring and also going into next fall. So what's your thoughts on that game?
Well, this game, looking at the box score, but I think it's some stuff not on the box score that you had to take into account. This was your ex coming to visit bowl to me. It's just like, man, I think Coach Said probably told him, look, hit a little harder this week, drink a little more water, go to bed. We can't let him come in here with a team that's not playing well and beat me down because I'm the coach now. Because, a couple of fans had some rumbling about, well, we're doing even worse. We should get him back, So, he probably wanted to put a stamp on that no, you want me, not the ex. So I think this game kind of proved that. Alcorn, it looks like they didn't do a lot of passing, but they did get their looks like they got the running game going, and so that kind of is the thing that pushed them way over the hump. I didn't get to see a lot of that game. I peeked in at it a little bit, but poor Southern, they just looked like they couldn't put up much of a fight. I think mentally the team is kind of waiting on spring ball to open up and see what they could do next year. They're just not the fire just wasn't there when I tuned in and looked at that game. It looked like Alcorn was pushing them around pretty bad, and that's why they didn't have to throw much.
Hey, when you run for 250 yards, you don't have to throw that much. So,
No,
I look at it like this: a part of what's going on, I think it's trust, and then when things get to going bad, a lot of guys not stepping up to say, "Hey, man, I'm gonna make the play. I'm gonna do my job." And you see guys getting out of gaps and not making plays, missing tackles. They young in the secondary when Brister and the other guy, two safeties end up getting hurt. So it's a lot of stuff just going on. And then when you don't have good quarterback play, it's tough to get the ball to your playmakers. It's only certain guys you feel like you can trust. So you'll force a ball to them. You start seeing ghosts. I saw one play where the kid just sat down on the play. So it was just, it was a bad look. And just the commitment to doing your job is just not there. So, I mean, it's not much else you can say. When you don't run over for 100 and you're struggling throwing the ball, you're not going to win a lot of football games. And they were in it for a long time, but just couldn't get the play to get them going in the right direction, especially in the second half.
Right. And it seemed like Trey Holly is trying to, not blaming him, but he's just trying to ride it out for him to average 1.3 yards a carry, and we've seen him run pretty hard. I don't know if he's maybe nicked up or, they did spread the ball around. He wasn't the only one running, but we've seen him do better.
Yeah, and I think sometimes when you don't play with a tight end and people know they can focus on which way you're going to run the ball, then I think it's easier for the defense unless you go to a pistol look and maybe give him some counter looks. But with the offensive line not being able to knock anybody backwards, it's hard to run the ball with gap scheme. And then when you run in zone scheme, if you don't have a quarterback that can be a threat on the backside, they essentially taking a gap away that you can possibly run the ball through. So it's just a whole lot of things going wrong at the wrong time for those guys.
At the wrong time, yeah.
They still gonna win the Bayou Classic though.
Boy, I gotta see that.
Hey, the way things work, they probably would pull out and win the Bayou Classic. I know my question was, Coach, in those meetings, in order to change, if the SWAC was gonna go to a divisionless scenario situation, is this a situation where the ADs and say like the coaches have to vote and there's a certain percentage, or is it like where all 12 institutions will have to say they agree to this change or whatever? Like how does that work?
Man, now I'm not sure, but I think it had to go through the Council of Presidents, and the ADs would probably have a lot of say-so in it. And I want to say if it was 10 teams, it may have had to be 7 had to make a decision, but it was brought up, but I don't think it, as they say, left committee more or less.
Okay, because that's another thing too, right? Because even in having that conversation, it's like, well, why would the majority of ADs or coaches or whatever even want to go in that direction in the first place, right? Like, what would be, because you really have to frame it and show, like, why does it benefit this, for example, member institution? You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, like, you know what I mean? And why would this member institution, say a UAPB, for example, right? Why would they go and say, well, I don't want divisions anymore, when, yeah, you got the travel, all those things of that nature. But then also you got the fact that, okay, well, listen, if I can win this 5 games and lose 3, I have a chance, depending on which games I lose or win, to make it to a championship game, and then anything can happen in there, right? Why would I give that away so one or two teams can have the benefit of maybe playing twice a year. Like, what benefit is that for me, right? Why would I do that? And to me, that's the whole thought process for me is like, I don't understand outside of you were one of these institutions that wanted this to happen in the last few years. Why would other institutions want to go with you on that? It just didn't. It never made sense to me.
So it all went back to the scheduling part for a few of the ADs. It was almost like the Shoot and the Russell deal came because certain schools were having problems with their budget getting it. Right? And you hate to say it, Southern, Grambling, Jackson State, and even Texas Southern, because they were pretty good at basketball a lot of the time, they didn't have problems getting shoe deals where the Prairie Views, Valleys, the Pine Bluffs, even the Alcorns may have had some trouble getting shoe deals from the Nike. So that's why we had the conference uniforms and the conference shoes. So, take it how you want it. Depending on the school, you may say yes. And then if you're a mid school that can sort of have it either way, then you might get influenced by the top school saying yes or saying no, or the bottom school saying you more like us than you are them. One of those, like just like politics, we're going to play you against one side versus the other, and we're going to try to show you the commonalities, and you're not like them or you're not like us, one of those type of deals.
I got you. Well, let's keep it moving. Obviously, Jackson was able to handle Valley. Freshman quarterback had a really good game, passing the ball. Didn't run the ball 56 times this week, but still got the victory. And then also, I think the FAMU and UAPB game was one that was, pretty good game, right? FAMU essentially controlled the game right throughout, though. UAPB made it close at the end with a score, but really never really kind of threatened per se, in that game. And so that one was one that's 31-28 victory for FAMU. And so, they got a chance to finish possibly 7-5, for example, right? Depending on how the rest of these games go this year. And then obviously had the big Alabama A&M Prairie View game, 48-5 victory. Started really slow. Last week we started off really fast. This week started really slow. But even though they started slow, you never really felt like Alabama A&M necessarily controlled the game per se, right? It just was a slow start, right? Mm-hmm. But man, once they started rolling, they was rolling. So, what was y'all thoughts, man, overall on that game? What stood out to you there? And then also from an offensive standpoint, do you feel that they've seen as if maybe they figured some things out, or was it more Alabama A&M is just not good on the defense side of things? Like, what would you assess that to be?
Now, I was under the impression that they had some injuries in the defensive backfield, but I'm not exactly for sure on Alabama A&M side. We did have a little difficulty running at first, and I think the OC just made an adjustment to where, to me, it looked like as the game progressed, the offense was a little less predictable, and going downfield and stretching the field really made a difference in the game. And because I think Alabama A&M, and I don't know, I like Coach Shade, but I don't know Coach Shade, but I think his initial plan was they had a pretty sizable offensive line. I think they planned on kind of beating us up and just driving the ball and grind. I think they wanted an ugly game like they had against Grambling. And when we opened up the offense and they had to play catch up, that kind of showed their weakness, that throwing the ball is not their best thing. And defending the pass is kind of one of our better things. So it kind of played right into that adjustment they made sometime in the first half. So it was pretty good. And shout out to the fans that went up there. I could hear them all the way on the TV. So
yes, definitely. It was very noticeable.
Yes, yeah, and asking Cam to, he ran that quarterback dive a couple times, but where he really, like Mr. Bowers he just said it, read my mind. When they really went to a true RPO where he could pull it out, look downfield, and throw it, it really opened up the offense, because those guys been running free all year. It's just that on that RPO, he's been giving it or pulling it and running the dive. But now that he's taken, because even though I think Jimmy said their A&M defense is bad, but they're the only defense that held Grambling to 13 points, just like we did. They're not awful, but we found some things to make it work, because they weren't the smallest defense. Because even though Cam had a good game, they were pushing and getting some penetration. So he wasn't just standing there having a clear look downfield. But I felt this game he trusted his line a little more and got comfortable in the pocket. And when he had to move, he moved just enough to still make a pass and play instead of giving up and running for 1 yard. And that made a big difference in that game.
I like I say, if you look at it, the Joker almost had 400 yards passing and over 200 yards rushing. So, it was almost a pick your poison. I just looked at Alabama. I mean, the play that said it all for me was the Hail Mary right before halftime.
Oh, man.
It was actually the drive before the Hail Mary
that set it up.
It got them down there. So it was just, you hate to say it was like some of the poorest defense from a secondary standpoint that you could actually see. Nobody attacked the ball. It wasn't a lot of pressure. Maybe it should have been a penalty early in the play, but it was just it didn't look good. And I think once Prairie View, like they say, saw that they could hang foot, they just kept on hanging foot. And I think they needed it from a confidence standpoint, especially coming off a game like last week, to go from the 4 turnovers, losing a close one, to going up there, putting a smack down, as they say. So it was good for those guys. The kids seemed like they were having fun. And I think it goes back to, like we say, people don't realize how hard winning is. And when you can win like that, I mean, the flight, the turbulence wasn't as bad. The food tasted better on the bus ride to the airport. You probably not as sore as you would have been. So it's a lot for those guys coming down the home stretch to win on the road and, win a game convincingly like that.
Yeah.
No, I definitely think that as well.
How is it getting up to that school? Because I know some of those Alabama schools and Mississippi schools aren't the easiest to travel to. So what do you think about that?
They fly now, so that makes it. And Huntsville has a decent airport, and they usually have buses pretty much waiting for you. You may have to go a little bit, but I remember, man, the very last game I coached at Prairie View, we played up there, and man, it was good and cold up there, so it's a little bit different. But hey, flying up there is much better than driving. Like I say, we used to leave on Thursday in the middle of the night going up there, and one day I'm gonna have the craziest story about Pillowgate dealing with Alabama A&M football.
Pillowgate. That's interesting.
Yes.
Oh man, you definitely gotta let us know what that is, man.
So I definitely like the switch from essentially being the RPO action where it was Cam pulling it to run, even though that's there sometimes, many times last game, right, versus handing it off. I really do like the look of the true run pass option, giving it to him right there. And so, you just take advantage of what's there, right? And I think that's what you're supposed to do, at the end of the day. We keep hearing the thing about the schedule, and I see that's being brought up again. At the end of the day, a lot of these teams, when you look at the schedules between a lot of these teams are playing a lot of the same teams. That's why I don't really understand the whole schedule argument. It's not like some of these teams are going out coaching, going and scheduling some Missouri Valley games and playing some games against, these Southland teams and winning or something like that. I mean, these other schools are playing a D2 school, right? They played a FBS step up that everybody lose to, right? And then we all basically playing that same SWAC schedule from there. So with maybe 1 or 2 team difference. I don't get the whole schedule argument because at the end of the day, man, we all playing the same team. I mean, 9 out of all our 12 games is basically against the same teams. Like, what are we even talking about right now? And we 10 games into the season, y'all still talking about schedule. At this point, the team either gonna be good or they not good. I mean, your defense either has improved or it haven't. Your offense either can score or they can't. I mean, I just don't understand. We still talking about scheduling right now. But at this time, we ain't gonna talk about scheduling. We're going to talk about some game day experiences, right? And so we're going to let Coach Northern go into Northern Lights this week, and he's going to list some of his favorite spots when he talk about game day experiences across the SWAC. So, Coach, take it away.
So, look, I'm gonna talk just about overall game day experience. So I looked at it from a fan engagement, participation standpoint, the bands, the tailgating, those things. And I didn't count homecomings and I didn't count classics. So if I don't mention your school, don't get upset. But I'm going from a player, a coach, and a couple places that I've been to as a fan. So I did these in order. Most time I just do them, but these are my top. I'm gonna go 5 with a tie in order, and then I'm gonna go my bottom 3. So my tie is going to go to Jackson State and Southern when both, and I'm using this sort of as when both teams are pretty good and sort of no matter who they play against. So I'm going Jackson, which is always a good place to play, especially when they good or decent, and Southern as well. And I've had other people say this, and I didn't just go on my opinion. I talked to people in the conference, fans and everything, but those two, if you think about it, from the band situation, they have very passionate fan bases. They just alike, but they don't want to admit it because they both sort of hood adjacent. Great academic institution, good football program, great band. So I'm going those two first. My next place, surprisingly, is Alcorn. Now, and I may be a little bit biased. Alcorn was the game where I got my first start as a football player, but I just like pulling on Alcorn's campus. It is a very nice campus. The tailgating out there is on par with anybody's. You can go right outside the stadium and go get you a fish sandwich, a sausage, whatever you want. You can pretty much get it at the Alcorn game. I love War Chant. I love a band. That was one of the games that when I was playing that my brother used to be able to go to. It looked like all the time when we played Alcorn. But I love just that environment of going up there. You might hear anything from Lil Wayne to the oldest of the old school blues in the Mississippi down there. So I love Alcorn. The other one is Florida A&M. I remember I've only coached there once. I played there twice. One year we played them for their homecoming when I was a student athlete. But I really like it. So the only thing about FAM, it can be hard to get into depending on who they playing. But I like FAM. They have a good, if you ever been to like a North Carolina A&T, they have that type of vibe. It's not hood, but it's a great place to be and watch a football game. The band on par with everybody else, passionate fan base. And I always say Southern, FAM, and Jackson are exactly the same group of people, same love for their program. Anytime they lose, the coach is the worst, and anytime they win, the coach is the best. But I really like that FAM environment, even though the small stadium give them a little bit of a knock. The next place I really like going to games as a fan was Grambling. Being down in the hole, for whatever it is, a lot of people don't like that, having to go down into the stadium. But like I say, the history of the program, the only thing, it might not have the best concession stand, but I think that environment, being able to tailgate and then look down in the stadium is good. But like I say, going with the history of the program, the band, all that kind of stuff, put Grambling 4th on my list. And last but not least in the top 5 is Alabama State. It's sort of easy to get in. at times, depending on if Auburn playing at home. That's the only thing that might throw you a hiccup because they got to go up and down that same highway to get to the Auburns and stuff like that. But I really like Alabama State. The setup, the stadium is nice. They fan base might not rank up there with everybody else that I've mentioned so far, but they can have a good crowd in their stadium right off the highway in Montgomery. All right, so that's my top 5. And this is my bottom 3. Bethune, because of where they play, the way the stadium is, not a very, I'm not gonna say not a passionate fan base, but they're not known for their fans except when they go to play Florida A&M and whatever they call the Orange Blossom Classic or whatever. The other one that is difficult for me was Valley. I sort of like Valley because it's good in country, but at the same time, they never really been good. So you'll see them have some decent crowds, but not really, really good. They band is not really well known. They more known for controversy than they are being a good band lately. And the environment can be pretty good. You know, I know some coaches that have been up there. You know, the food wise is you can have a decent time, but just that whole Valley experience, passing by the cotton fields, the sweet potato fields, and the catfish farm, and not to mention one time we got lost because the GPS stopped working going up. I want to say the Natchez Trace up there one time. And my last but not least is Texas Southern. The stadium, first of all, is not theirs, no matter what they say. The second part, it can be very hot and humid in there, and even though they're supposed to be adding fans, that's another thing. And they not known for their fan base. Their band has much improved. I will give them that. And last but not least, man, the Labor Day Classic, we go down there, pay for parking, and somebody break in my son's truck. So they move further down on the list. But that's my top 5 and my bottom 3 right there.
Oh man, Mr. Mickens, man, what's your thoughts on that? Do you want to add? Would you take away? Which one do you think is, spot on? Which one do you think is a little bit too high?
No, those were spot on. He forgot the 1 foot tall grass at Valley though, but yeah, I can picture all of those stadiums from the description. That was really really good stuff. But he makes me want to go see Valley.
Hey, but they have turf now.
Yeah,
look,
they messed it up.
The other thing I can remember as a player, I want to say it must have been my junior year, maybe. Man, we pull up the Valley, and man, they got the doggone sprinklers on, a couple hours before the game. Like, man, hey, the mosquitoes, and the mosquitoes in Valley look like moss compared to what's down here. But I sort of like Valley a little bit because of the country vibe. But man, you didn't want to go play up because they always had, when I'm talking about when I was playing, but they always had a very outstanding linebacker, no matter who was the coach. And man, they always had a running back that ran so hard. Like the offensive line, not that good, but and then playing at Southern, our defense coordinator made the DBs, the starting secondary, play just about the whole game. But the second defense and third defense line in front of us. So I'm like, hey man, I'm tired of tackling this dude, bro. Can y'all give us, it's one of them type of, they always had a very tough running back. And then they kept 1 or 2, most of the time it might be 2 receivers, and you wonder how in the hell they end up at Mississippi Valley. But they had catches off and on down there.
Now, were you coaching when the sprinklers came on during the game? I think that was Valley. Yeah.
Yes.
I remember that game.
And look, I'm looking at that field and that picture back there, and we talk about Blackshear, but Blackshear never got destroyed no matter fire or hurricane that came through there. And look, no lie, one year they striped the field. On one side, the line started at the 10. On the other side, it went to the 9. So they had to go and spray paint green and put another white line down. No lie.
That is
Hey,
outrageous.
that was a home field advantage. Walking from the intramural center to the football field, that was part of the home field advantage at Prairie View.
Wow.
Wow.
Listen, hey, that's crazy. Just having to spray green paint down.
Yes.
It's just crazy. That's funny. Man, Coach, I know a little bit earlier, Chris Ford had asked a question about, from that Texas Southern game, if there is a rematch between Prairie View and Alabama State, right, if they find their way into the SWAC championship game, he's asking here, what would your approach be defensively, especially after seeing how many points they put up against Texas Southern?
I'm gonna try to make them play left-handed. I'm gonna try to take away they number. I'm gonna look at their top 2 or 3 plays by down and distance, and I'm gonna try to take them. I'm gonna make them do something different. So if I know on 1st and 10 they like zone read or counter off the zone read or the screens, it's certain things you can do as a defense to try to make them show their hand. You could show blitz and see what they're going to do. You could play off and make them throw the ball in front of you. So there's a couple things, but I'm going to try to make them play left-handed, what we call it, and take away their best. And I may show them 1 or 2 blitz. I may go through, because you may have time. If I'm Prairie View and I got enough people on my staff, if I know who I'm playing 2 weeks out, I'm going to go through every game and look at what gave them. I want to look at every sack that they gave up on the season and see what was it, personnel or was it scheme that got the sack for the other team. So I'm going to do that. And I'm not going to change much, because depending on the time that I have as a defense coordinator, but I might say, here's a wrinkle, or we can do this based off of what we already have in our playbook. And I go back to, we play Alabama A&M twice the year we won the championship. And we were running a defense, and I like to call my 3 technique to the strong side, but they would shift the tight end. And Coach Sewell made a suggestion. He said, hey, Coach, instead of calling, since they flipping it and making us determine the defense, he said, call the strength to the weak side, which for us, we just call split. That means we're going to put the 3 technique to the weak side. And that changed the whole game. And then we changed one linebacker. We went to a bigger linebacker. But you go with what you know, add a wrinkle, and look at everything that gave them problems and see, can I do, or do we have what gave them problems throughout the season?
Mm-hmm.
That makes a lot of sense, Coach. Appreciate you sharing that. Yes. And again, we got under the headset coming up too as well. If you got questions, Coach did put that in the chat a little bit earlier. Get your question in the chat. We do have a couple already that we're gonna throw his way. But again, if you have some questions for Coach, you can put those in the chat, and we're gonna talk a little bit in just a few seconds under the headset in that segment. But want to talk about this upcoming week coming up. We get down, man, to the last few weeks of this season. Really in November now, y'all, and a few games left. You got Jackson, who is in control of their own destiny. You got Alabama State that's sitting there on the east side that's waiting to see if Jackson can drop one. And then you got Bethune-Cookman, obviously, who's lost, right, and they're kind of out the way. But you also have a school like FAMU, who's seeing if they can possibly get back in there, right? Depending on if Jackson and Bama State take a loss. And so, still kind of got some things going on right on that east side, which is, different than we've seen the last few years. It's been the west side that has been a lot more parity and a lot more contentious. But this year it seems like it's on that side of things. And in the west, Prairie View, 2 games left, have a chance. If they can win one of those 2, they'll go ahead and win the SWAC West and secure their place in the SWAC championship game. Grambling is still hanging around. They have a slight opportunity. Again, they have to win out, and Prairie View has to lose the last 2 games. And so, again, a Grambling loss or a Prairie View win essentially puts it away. And so that's kind of where we are right now. And then got a lot of programs really trying to figure things out, trying to see how to rebuild and completely start anew. But, Coach, next week we have a couple games that are going to be real interesting. Especially in terms of this SWAC championship preparation race. Again, Bethune-Cookman-Jackson could have been a bigger game than what it's going to be now. You have that one 4-2 Bethune against 5-1 Jackson. You also got Grambling 4-2 against Alcorn, right? Sitting at 3-3. So Alcorn is out the race. That's a big game for Grambling, and just Grambling is Alcorn just from the history of that game is just a big game. And then obviously you also have Prairie View hosting Arkansas Pine Bluff, who's sitting at 2-4, but they've been able to put some points on the board, and so they're going to be a good test for Prairie View as they continue to try to go ahead and secure SWAC West. But from those three games, Coach, or any of the other games this upcoming week, just what's your thoughts briefly, on those games for these teams that's still vying for an opportunity to make the SWAC championship game?
If I had to watch, I would watch the Grambling Alcorn game. I think the Jackson game is going to be a lot more exciting than people realize. Bethune's quarterback had a few turnovers early, and I think that sort of put everything, I say, out of reach for them. But I think that game is going to be real interesting if he can get back and add something to the running game and then still be able to complete some passes. And if Jackson can't just line up and say, here you go running back right, here you go running back left, that one might be interesting come. And then you got to think about the suspensions too. But I think everybody that got suspended already served their suspension unless something come down Monday. And then it may be a situation where if it's so many guys that got suspended, they'll have to stagger those suspensions because you can't have a certain amount of guys out for the same game, from what I know.
So what do you mean? What do you mean they served their suspension though? That
because some guys they didn't play the second half of the Grambling game for both teams.
Oh, gotcha.
But like I say, they may look at the film because everything is supposed to be filmed inside the stadium from, I want to say, 30 or 45 minutes before to after the game. And I don't know if you know, now you see guys in warm-ups with jerseys with their numbers on the back. That all happened because of some pregame fights, and they couldn't tell who was who. So it was one of those types of things. That's why the guys, when they warm up pregame, have numbers on. They supposed to have numbers on the back of their jerseys now. But that's sort of how that went. Some was supposed to be suspended for the last game.
Gotcha. They said Graham had one kid get thrown out after the fight as well. So
now that kid that got sent up late in the game, he has to sit out the first half of this game, but those other kids may have already served their suspension, the ones that didn't play the second half of the game last week.
Gotcha. Well, that would be good for both Grambling and Bethune-Cookman if that's the case, for sure. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Mr. Malone says, when was the last time we won 9 games in a season? That's a great question. I think comment was, 2010 to what Kayla's saying here. So we'll have to look it back up. But I know, 2009, I think I want to say 08 and 09.
Yes.
We had 9 wins. Yeah. So 2009, I think, would have been the last year. So that's a big thing, right? It's a big accomplishment when you talk about where you want to move your program to, and where 9 wins seems is normal or even like underachieving, right?
Yeah.
And so, and so it's a good thing, right? We have an opportunity to get it done, and all those things are very important. And Coach Jackson always makes a statement, about, hey, this is our first time, right? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what happened with Prairie View program in any period of time in the past, because this is a new program, new regime, right? It's built off the back of what's been there, but at the end of the day, they haven't done it yet, right? This program, this coaching staff, these players haven't won 9 games yet. And so it's important for them to win it. And then again, those expectations continue to go from there. But with that said, man, I want to get into under the headset, right? That's our last segment of the night. And I know we have a couple questions that we had already kind of predetermined because some people kind of have given us some questions from before we came on. But again, if you have a specific question for Coach that we believe we can get to and answer again in a timely fashion and manner, right? Want to go ahead and put that in the chat. I did see one question here, Coach, regarding defenses. He was asking, could you list? And I know you might not necessarily list your top 3 defenses, but you can if you do. But specifically, like, what do you use to grade those defenses when you look at what you would consider top defenses? What do you use to grade them?
Man, I look at scoring more than anything. Can you score? Can you keep the other team from scoring? Do you get turnovers? And sometimes it may go between yards and third down efficiency. So if I'm just going off the top of my head right now, if I had to pick, in my opinion, the top 3 defenses right now, number 1, I'm gonna go with Prairie View because they do a little bit of everything. They can stop the run. They're gonna confuse the hell out your quarterback in the passing game, and they can be opportunistic. I think they would like to think that the sacks may not be where they want them, but they get pressure. That's a whole. Those two can be independent, but they sometimes go together. The second defense, I think, playing right now, to be honest with you, is Gremlins, because the amount they can get some turnovers, and they've been known for getting turnovers, and they come up big in some games for them, and they on a good streak right now. The third defense, man, I like Jackson's defense, but sometimes I think they can get over aggressive and get out of lanes because they can get away with it against certain teams. But I think if you look at the top teams, those teams are going to be in there from a scoring standpoint. Getting turnovers is very important, and then either getting off the field on third down or keeping the yardage down, giving your offense a chance to get. That would be my top 3 right now. I wouldn't say Grambling over Prairie View. No, I see somebody say Grambling. Nah, man. I don't know if you're a Grambling fan or not, but I'm just going off of what I see from a defensive standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree because they, although they've been stout at times, I still like Prairie View's defense over that. And I did notice because I thought like you, dang, they don't get enough sacks. But what I did notice, sometimes an opportunistic defense that does get a lot of sacks, those guys take a lot of risks too. And sometimes you end up a big run because you don't hold contain. Because sometimes the defensive ends don't square off like they're supposed to. They slide straight in, so that's why they get sacked. But if that guy makes one cut, he's gone.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I remember the Grambling game. You know, I thought it was really interesting to see how disciplined the defensive line was, right? To essentially kind of, push the line forward, right, but not get out of their lanes, right, because they wanted T-Set to stay in the pocket. So, those are important. So, Coach, I had a question that came in from before, and I think this is really important. We talked about it last year, how we saw a lot of issues with discipline, right? You know what I'm saying? Coaches talk about it all the time, especially we talk about pre-snap penalties for sure, right? Or stuff after the whistle and things of that nature. Somebody asks, well, what goes into instilling discipline in your program, right? Can you kind of break that down to help us understand? Because it's like training a child, right? Train a child in the way you want it to go, right? It's not just that specific moment that you're trying to say, hey, this needs to do this. It's like those lessons along the way that help them when they're in those situations, they know what to do, right? So what does that look like with a program of instilling discipline?
I think it's a 3-pronged approach, and it depends on, it's going to start, I think a lot of people sort of started, or they think it starts on the field. In my opinion, it starts 2 places before it even gets to the field, the classroom and the weight room, because that's where they're going to spend way more time. So if you got guys 9 times out of 10 that go to class, which I understand nowadays, A lot of guys don't even have classes where they have to go to a classroom during the season. So that's a whole different ball game. But the classroom and the weight room starts everything. Then their teammates holding them accountable. And I would always tell guys, make sure you talk to everybody. Don't not say something because, number one, that kid is good, or don't not say something because that's your homeboy, that's who you smoke, drink, and eat with, one of those types of things. So you have to be an equal opportunity advisor, disciplinarian with your teammates. So it's different things like that, but classroom, weight room, teammate holding each other accountable, as well as the coaching staff. So it was certain things that if I had to punish a kid and I really wanted to keep a kid around, the first time I may just punish that kid. The second time, just say if he played running back, the whole running back group may have to get up and serve their punishment together with that guy. Now that's where your external pressure come in from, hey man, you the one messed up. Or I might say, you run while everybody else up, or vice versa. Everybody else run while you watch, because since you causing this problem, different things like that. But I think it's different ways that you handle discipline before it even gets to the field. Now, sometimes some of that discipline stuff, it may be more inexperience than it is discipline for some kids. So that's a whole different ball game. But I think it starts before you even get to the field. And I noticed this about Prairie View. I get to the game about 2 hours before it starts, and I watch them line up and stretch. Mm-hmm. And you can tell that it's been honed into those guys, and I've seen them at practice before, to get behind the line and on the line is two totally different things. When I can watch a team stretch and you don't see coaches saying a whole lot to guys, I know that they tuned in and everything, the groundwork has been laid. So you can see that, because I think sometimes the penalties are going to come, but the other discipline part, I think sometimes we overbash or oversay or overstate about a coach's players are not disciplined. It's more to it than that. So, but I just, you can tell how a program is being run, and you can listen to guys on the sideline. Yeah, hey man, hey, be quiet. You heard what coach said. I would tell guys, I'm gonna just use Courtney Brown for example. I say, Courtney, you tell such and such this, but don't tell them I said it. And then I want to see how do they respond to you as opposed to it coming from me. So different things like that. You can tell those guys hold each other accountable. I saw two offensive linemen arguing one game, and another guy came in and shut it down. Like, hey, you know you wrong. You don't have to fuss at him like that. Everybody sit down and be quiet. Let's wait on coach to come. Just like that.
Wow, that's big. And I mean, and you talk about having those leaders within the locker room because it's an extension of the coach, right? So, and that's when your coach is being there. So, and talking about that and talking about culture, I think this is another really important question too as well. Coach, what do you actually want the band to play?
Oh, man.
Like what do y'all actually want the band to play? That's important.
So a lot of it is not what. I think some of it is timing of what they play. So I listened to one of the Prairie View guys' shows, and it's like we want to have it both ways. So the last game I went to, the band, I think it was the Alabama State game, the band got warned about playing. But then some people complain about the band not playing enough. So it's like you can't have it both ways. But I think if I had to do it all over again, I would find me a Houston anthem that when everybody hear the song, everybody gonna know this Houston. When I was coaching the defense, it was called the Purple Haze defense. So I might try to see if I could get purple stuff, like a little rip of purple stuff. Every time we got to stop, we get that played just for the defense, something like that. But I think now with the DJs take a little bit away from the band, and then the band may want to save something for the fifth quarter. So I think it's the timing of what you play. after a big stop by the defense or something to encourage the defense. Absolutely no playing on offense unless it's after the touchdown. And I get me a Houston anthem. I don't know if it's my mind playing tricks on. I'm gonna find me a Houston song that when they play it, and Prairie View is not in Houston, but it's close enough to where you may want to rep Houston and everybody know that's why we playing that song. But I find me a defensive song. Yeah. And I remember when the Purple Haze, when they first started calling that. But yeah, I find me something like that though.
Yeah, and Boom says he named him that.
Hey, look, I could go back and remember when I first started seeing the shirts with Purple Haze and all that. Look, we were knocking fools out, no lie.
Yeah,
right.
they were hitting.
Right. No, for sure. And I think it makes sense too when you talk about the timing, right? Because, and I've said it before, I think, you have to have the right chance. You have to have the right songs that hit at the right time. And I think you start kind of, because it's almost, when you think about it, like a jingle almost, right?
Mm-hmm.
You hear a certain thing at a certain time, it kind of gives, like my little daughter, when we put her bottle on, she would hear that ding go off, right? And she'd start saying bye-bye, right? Because she know the bottle is ready. And so in the same token, it's almost, that's kind of the things that will start getting your fan base connected with your band, connected with your football team, and all things in sync. Because like, hey, every time we get a turnover, we're gonna play Swamp, right? And the fans get up and cheers. No, hey, it's a turn. I could be coming out the bathroom, and I know we got a turnover because I hear the song playing, right? And so same thing, like, hey man, when the fourth quarter come, when the offense get the ball first drive in the fourth quarter, or second drive in the fourth quarter, we're gonna play P-Funk, right? And we're going to ride it through the whole possession until we score a field goal or score a touchdown. Because we know that's what we do. That's our put this team away song, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, we just, you just have to have songs specific times. And I think that's the thing. Teams that have really good kind of those three elements together are teams that kind of have those songs to play at the right time. Mr. Meekins, what's your thoughts on that before we move to the next question?
No, I like the one what you said. Use the same song to mean, at the right time. A third down song, different songs like touchdown song, because it would have the same effect as when the band comes out. If you missed the beginning of it or not, because they play the Entertainment Tonight song. So if you hear that song, that's the very beginning of their halftime show. So we need something we can identify, and they start doing that over and over to get you really into it.
Yeah, so let's go. Probably take two more, and then we'll close out. We got a couple though. We'll take some up maybe next week. I don't see any other in the chat either. But Coach,
Okay.
we have one question here too. How do you recover after a loss, right? Ooh. As a coach, what's that process?
Man, I think if people really knew how coaches took some of that stuff, they wouldn't say a lot of stuff there. And people say they don't care because of the money that's involved or whatever. But I think the main thing that I tried to do was not bring a loss home to my wife and my kids, because they don't deserve however I felt. I tried to make sure, especially if it was a away game, I would probably get home at 4 or 5 in the morning, or maybe come home at 8 the next morning and then go back to the office after a couple of hours. I tried to make sure I get them jokers a hug and tell them what happened and go from there. And I never let it change my anger or disappointment in my other family affect what happened with my house family. So that was the one thing. I never did drink extra or whatever, all that type of stuff. But I just try to, get back to the board, get back in the office as soon as possible, and let's try to figure out what went wrong, what I could have done better, what the players could have done better. And every week as the head coach, when I was there, I would do a SWOT analysis, strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. And I would send that to everybody that was involved in the football program, from the president of the university, the athletic director, the academic advisors, the trainers, all the coaches. And if you look at my typing now, you see it's in all caps. And I'll never forget this. Coach Clay, who's still a track coach up there, I sent it to him one time, and he just looked at him like, Coach, why are you looking at me like that? He's like, Coach, you must be really angry because you type your SWOT analysis in all caps. I'm like, nah, I just don't like the going back and forth between capitalizing letters and not capitalizing them. So I just type and put a bullet point in front of it. So it was sort of funny, but I mean, it's tough, man. Your food don't taste good. Your drink don't taste good. I mean, it's tougher than people imagine. And then, you know, you still have to walk around the community. You have your neighbors looking at you. It's almost like you got toilet paper hanging out your shoe. You got a booger on your nose, and ain't nobody telling you about it. You still got to walk around with your head held high. And I never treated my players any differently after we won or lost a game. You know, I just try to, hey, man, we better than that, and let's move on, and let's not hold on to a loss. So I apologize if I went a little bit long, but that losing it hurts.
No, it's good. I mean, Mr. Mickens, you experienced some losses too as a fan. You know, how do you recover? Like, what's your process?
Well, my process is I try to pull what the positive was out of the loss. Sometimes the ball, because it is a football, and the way it's shaped, it could bounce the wrong way. You know, this guy would catch the ball like the Giant receiver did when he caught it on his helmet or something crazy. Yeah. You know, sometimes it just bounces that way, or you crooked up, I get drunk. But no, that doesn't help. That make you mad. Then you end up fighting somebody. You don't want to do that. But oh no. Okay, really. Hey, I still remember they had, what was that player, Ben Anderson or somebody? Yeah. That dude was good. So but yeah, that's a tough deal. You know what? I think the losing thing is tougher if you're a Prairie View fan, because we're the only school that had an 80-game losing streak. So even when you win, and people like to throw that in your face.
Yeah.
And because of that losing streak, even when you're winning, you get everybody's best shot. So nobody wants to lose the Prairie View. And then when we win, they say we beat them because they were sorry. Even though it's the same people your so-called top team played, you know. So as a Prairie View fan, I've gotten used to it because, you know, we could go out and beat the Baltimore Ravens, and they would just say it was a down year for the Ravens. They wouldn't, because of PV, nobody will. If you don't believe me, watch and see who the players of the week are picked by the SWAC tomorrow. Nobody gives PV credit, no matter how good they do. So when we lose, I don't say it don't faze me, but I'm here for it because I get it whether we win or lose.
Hey, Kayla is hilarious. Like, coach. Oh man, getting the players to run, it always makes the coach feel better. That is hilarious.
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh man. So last question, Coach, I was gonna ask you is, you know, talking about you know, some of the things you look to do and not taking things home, right? Going back and seeing what's wrong. You know, you putting on your AD hat, you've done it a couple times on Northern Lights before. What would be your annual goal for a coach, right? Because now you got, you know, teams essentially moving, like you said a little bit earlier, to this 2-year model almost. You got to win within 2 years. What would be your annual goals for a coach? How would you set that up? What would the expectations be if you know, what goals do you want them to hit from in year 1 versus 2, 3, and 4, for example?
I guess it depends on the program that you're taking over. if the program is sort of trending in the right way when you take over, that's one thing. If it was getting stale or on a decline, that's a whole different ball game. Then I have to look at, you hate to say it, what infrastructure do I have around this coach to make this coach successful? Do I need to go out and is it some equipment that we need, or is it just players? Is it scholarships? Is it summer school? It's a whole lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that people do not know about that affect winning and losing. Some of the biggest things, and I'll say this: being able to get your own strength coach means a whole lot to a program. Being able to have your own academic advisors mean a lot to a program. Like bring in people that you trust and you know that's going to do right by them kids. Not necessarily you, but that's going to do right by them kids. And the last and one of the most important parts is not being told that you have to keep somebody and then having the right trainer. I think the trainer and the strength coach are on par with who your offensive and defensive coordinators are at certain schools. Because especially if you're at a school that don't have a lot of depth, then you better have an outstanding strength coach. If you don't have a lot of depth, you better have an outstanding trainer that's good in prehab and rehab, getting kids back on the field. Now, concussions, I take totally off the table. I don't want anything to do with concussions. And Chris Ford will tell you what I did for him when he had a concussion. So, but I think that's the most important thing that I'm going to look at as an AD. And then I'm going to look at scheduling, because sometimes scheduling can make you a better coach, especially in your first 2 years. You may have to play some of the Langstons, Louisiana colleges to get the confidence up, depending on what you're taking over. And then you may say, I'm going to play some Rices and some North Texas my second year, but I wouldn't want to start off more or less playing them when I know my summer school budget. I have 30 kids in summer school, and then my second game, I'm going to play a FBS team. They got their whole team in summer school. It's just different things like that if I'm an AD, I have to look at, did I give this guy the right ammunition to go out there? And I keep going back to hunting. And you could say, yeah, I killed something with a 22 before, but you ain't going to consistently kill with no 22 and you hunting deer and elk. That's all I'm saying.
Nope.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Mr. Mickens, anything to add before we look to wrap up?
Oh no, he read my mind. That's exactly how it would match up. You got to do apples and apples. I think my only thing is, and I know fans are very fickle nowadays and impatient, but I really believe that the 2-year thing at Grambling is going to be a tough thing to get to work. I think even if it's just 3, you need more than 2 years. I just don't think you know what you got in 2 years. So that's the only thing I'd like to add to that.
Yeah, I think the 2-year thing makes no sense at all, personally. But hey, listen, that's what crumbling dynasties do. Dynasties make a lot of bad decisions when they fail. You know what I mean? When they fall into the ground, you know, the king ain't making a wise decision at that time. You know, the wise men might be dead by then. They ain't got counselors to go to. They just making one bad decision after another and exacerbating it. So that's what we're seeing now.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You know, the thing about it is, I think Coach Jackson may have thrown a monkey wrench and all that. But the thing about it, I keep going back to, you got to look at everything else that he has in place that's going to help him be a successful coach. Right. I bet if you go back and look at how many kids they had in summer school, those numbers look pretty doggone good. I bet if you look at him and AD Golf being right here on the same page, same word, same line, that's going to be very good. And then you have a president that wants to see him be successful.
Right.
So it's a lot of I keep going back to alignment is probably more important than anything else you can do.
Mm-hmm. And it, that coach also goes to the fact that sometimes, Coach Jackson has gone some places and kind of not even the fact that he's gone places, right? Another thing with Coach Jackson that I loved when I first was kind of looking at him and his resume, et cetera, was he was a part of a lot of the, AFCA Coaches Association and things of that nature. Well, that means you rubbing shoulders with a lot of guys. You're seeing a lot of things and how they're done, what should be done well, what a full staff program look like at the highest level of FCS. Because how can you come in and ask for certain things when you don't know the certain things you need, right? And so him and AD Golf had that conversation, say, hey, I need these 10 things, right? Well, in some of these places, like you say, there's some resources that may lack being able to be given, but also there's some conversations that aren't being had because, well, the AD and the coach just don't know what they don't know too. And so and in that sense, you can be behind an 8-ball, not being able to, again, like how we talked about before, well, yeah, you're doing better, but man, Fobbs is there right now because they got a program in place, right? They got a lot of things in place outside of just the talent that's coming in.
I'm going to disagree with you on that point about a coach not knowing, because a lot of times during spring football, like we had a schedule. If we wasn't in practice, we going to go visit XYZ. We might try to visit 10 schools during the spring we might say we're limited from anywhere from Alabama all the way to New Mexico. And then we might dip into Arkansas. Let's go to these schools, see what they have, look at their facilities, try to make some inroads on some transfers with their coaches, and then maybe bring a player or two back. So now you see what everybody else has. So it's not like SWAC coaches are just sitting around and saying, oh, all I know is SWAC football. Nah, we go to a lot of places. And then I could use myself. Man, I'm going to use the NFL teams that I've been to practices and either work with them or sat in meetings. Tampa Bay, Atlanta, Buffalo, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, the Raiders, the Texans, and the Titans. So that's just off the top of my head. And if I look at my notes, it may be so we get a chance to go places, but sometimes, and I'm gonna just use my school, Coach Graves, coach me. So if Tony Clayton goes and says what he says immediately after Coach Graves get the job and says, hey, I'm not with that hire, and then Coach Graves goes back to the board, the AD or whatever, and says, hey, I need this for my program, and then they say no to him, are they saying no because they don't want to see him be successful, or are they saying no because they don't have the money in the budget for it? That's where I stand on some of that stuff. So that's why I'm talking about vertical alignment and people being on the same page is very important. And I know my wife probably going to say, hey, you shouldn't say that, or some Southern fan going to say, I shouldn't say it, but I'm gonna tell it like it is.
Yeah, and I get that. And this when I'm talking about 2 years, or CEA makes the comment here, it's like Coach Northern said, right? What program are we talking about, right? What school are we talking about? If nobody would look at Valley and say, well, you're gonna give Coach 2 years because you're gonna say that's not enough time to build that program. And I think the reality is, right, a lot of these so-called blue blood programs, these, self-proclaimed programs that are a winning program. Listen, first of all, who told Southern they're a winning program? I mean, that's my question, Coach. Just plug your ears. Just plug your ears. Who told Southern they're a winning program? When the last time Southern won a SWAC championship? At what point in time is Southern not a winning program? Do we have to go another 20 years of them not winning the SWAC championship for them to not be a winning program? Because they can lean on what Pete Richardson did a long time ago, how they want to. That may just be Pete Richardson. Maybe that's just him then, right? You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, like, at some point you got to realize where you are and realize, like, hey, you're not
a year removed, or 2 years, or 3 removed from what Pete put in place. You far from that right now. So you're not a 2-year program at the end of the day right now. That's not what you are. I mean, Grambling is closer to that than anybody because they've won with multiple coaches over the last 2 decades, right? You know what I'm saying? But that's not Southern. So why in the world would Southern even think that I can come put a guy in place and in 2 years he's gonna do this thing? You have to be, to me, realistic, right? Now, if Fam, you can say, well, I think I can roll him in. Willie was just here. I get them maybe having that mindset of 2 years, but at the end of the day, to me, you got to really assess where you are. It's not about what you think you are or think you're a blue blood or whatever, man. At the end of the day, it's like, but this is where I'm at now. I may have been blue blood, but right now I'm in a 3-year, 4-year span to get back to that point, and you got to build it that way, or you can keep doing 2 and 2, and now you're in the same place. Think about if you'd have gave one, if you got the right coach and gave him 4 years versus doing what you did the last 4 years and get rid of 2 coaches. That's what I'm saying. To me, that doesn't make sense. But hey, man, what do I know? You know what I'm saying? I'm just a podcaster telling y'all that y'all crumbling dynasties. Okay, that's all. But with that said, man, any last words y'all got for the people before we get up out of here, Coach Kerry?
Pray for no rain on Saturday. It's not looking good right now.
Well, yeah, PV likes the rain, so I guess it's all good. Christian Peters likes to throw it around, so if it rains, that might dampen his game. But I'm coming anyway. Good for reminding me. I'll get my poncho, and shout out to all the podcasters who's going to come up with all the excuses about why Prairie View won this week. So just want to say thank you guys for the attention, and that's all I had.
Coach?
I'm good to go, baby. I'm looking forward to it. It's winding down.
Winding down. Almost time to the off season for y'all to hope and wish again. You know what I'm saying? So, but listen, listen, man. Only thing I gotta say is, look, we got 1 more week, and after the 15th, you guys are gonna have 3 weeks to make up all the stats you want, to figure out all the reasons you want. But listen, you got 3 weeks to decide what you want to do. Okay? But at the end of the day, no matter who you want in the SWAC championship game, no matter if you want to go divisionless or not, we gonna be there, okay? Regardless of you there or not. So get all your talking points in, because the only thing that's gonna matter is what happened in them 60 minutes on that day in that game, okay? And so with that said, man, we out of here. We'll holler at y'all.